Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Electropreneur Secrets, the Electrician Podcast. We're here with you 5 days a week to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service. And today we have a very special guest, Roy Gomez, one of our favorite electricpreneurs who has worked with us both as a prospect and just a community member for a while, Roy, in residential electrical business services, I think is where we first met
Yes, sir.
back in the early beginnings with Lloyd,
Yeah.
but then later as a client. And Roy actually just comes with good news today, passing a bit of a fishing test this weekend. Roy, tell us about your little vacation here.
A literal fishing test.
A literal fishing test.
I was able to leave on Thursday and went down to the coast and spent a few days out there fishing. Had service the whole time, but didn't receive any phone calls.
Nice.
We were able to be able to be handled internally here
Yeah.
at the office. A couple of problems arose and there were some issues, and everything was handled and taken care of. And the customer was happy by the time I made it back into town.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I love this. And I know you guys watching are going to love this story because there's truly a bit of magic here, right? And it hasn't always been easy to explain, Roy, has it?
No, it hasn't.
All right. So Roy's with Dynamic Electric and he's down in Round Rock, Texas. Did I get that right, Roy?
Correct.
And you guys have been around for
For February of 2019 when we started. So
nice.
4.5 years,
Yeah,
4 years.
right on. And when you began this journey in Dynamic Electrical, how many guys did you start with?
I started with just myself, running
Okay.
six calls and getting out there and getting those CODs. So you gotta have money to make money, and
Yeah.
started with myself and then slowly built it from there.
Okay. So just to be clear, no loans, no investors, none of that, just a grind.
I had $5,000 that my wife would allow me to use. Not really, but it was $5,000 that I took and filed for my LLC, outfitted my personal truck, and hit the road.
Wow. I love that. And about how long till you hired your first staff, if you recall?
It was a month and a half.
Oh, wow. Right out the gate. You knew you needed help. And
Yeah,
was that an apprentice or another electrician?
apprentice that I'd worked with previously at another company, and
Okay.
I'd had a job that was coming up that I knew I was going to need help on a big remodel, and told him that as soon as this contract gets signed, I'll hire you on. I don't want to bring you over with false pretenses or anything. And called him up on a Sunday night to let him know that, hey, this contract signed, put you to work. Put your 2 weeks in. Let's go to work. And he said, well, I actually quit my job on Friday, so I can start tomorrow. And it blew me away that he had that confidence, that he was going to get hired on quickly here, and that I was going to be able to bring him on. And he is now, he's passed his wireman's test and he's passed his journeyman's test. He's now a journeyman electrician with
Still
Dynamic.
with you.
Yes.
Oh, that's amazing. So retention's been a big key. And just to set the picture up here, where are we now, 4.5 years later?
I've got 9 field employees, a full-time estimator. My wife does HR and payroll. I run the business. So there's 12 of us total within the company.
Oh, wow. And just to give people an idea of revenue, what's your target this year? What do you think you'll reach?
3 million is my goal this year.
Nice job. Well done.
Yes.
We're
And
super
we are
proud of that.
on path to this point to hit that 3 million mark.
Wow.
A couple of contracts come in on some big jobs that we just put out, may put us over that mark even. So
Okay. This kind
fantastic.
of gives some merit to that fishing test now.
Yes.
So you're able to pull away. And is this sort of the first time that you've been able to pull away and not have to answer a phone or have to reply to an email?
Yes. Yeah, it's the first time I felt comfortable to where, the business was going to run and the guys could call with any troubles to the estimator, because the estimator I hired has got 30 years electrical experience, had a medical issue, can't be out in the field anymore. So he comes with a great deal of knowledge also to be able to help and guide the guys in any problems they may have. But it was the first time that I was able to set my phone down and not have to worry about it. I could, leave it in the house and go sit on the pier and fish, knowing that things were going to be taken care of.
Wow. Wow. At this point, I am tempted to ask, like, what do you think that retention's all about? and the attraction really, because you've grown quite a bit in the last little bit. Like last year, how many staff did you have? Maybe it's a better question here.
8, I believe. There was at one point, I've fired quite a few guys. I was
Okay.
always taught coming in, they'd be quick to hire, but even quicker to fire.
Right.
Because you don't want that bad seed to spread anything within the company.
Yeah.
Got to cut it off pretty quick and make sure to keep that culture that I'm wanting to build here. And, I've worked for a lot of companies throughout my career, and they were always preaching we're family business, family first, family first. Well, as we all know, we've all worked for those companies, and they'll tell you that. But then when it comes time to where you've got to put your family first, no, it's company first. Well, we need you here. You have to be here on this job. You can't go to your grandmother's funeral, whatever it may be. And that's something that I have tried to pride myself on doing with this company, is building to be a family oriented company. The guys come to me with family issues that they're having at their house, and I'll go take care of them. Go take care of that first. Let me know if there's anything that I or we can do to help.
Yeah.
It's a big belief. Something that I always wanted to work for coming up in my career, and swore if I ever did it on my own, that I would make that happen.
Yeah. And you know what? That really shows. I can definitely attest to it because we've met much of your staff and working together, and several times complimented them and their drive to grow within this umbrella and this business that you've grown so well, Roy. So congratulations on that. You also said something though I want to call attention to that's very interesting, that quicker to fire bit.
Yes.
That almost seems counterintuitive to the growth, but I think a lot of our viewers, listeners, have read that or heard that even in Tommy Mello's book. Where did you learn it from though? Because you've been doing this a while before Tommy Mello said it in his book.
I've learned it from other guys that run their business, and just with talking, there's a lot of pre-planning going into this, to finally step my foot outside the door and start my own company. It was probably 3.5, 4 years of serious planning and talking with others and picking people's brains and just getting advice from I wouldn't call them mentors per se, but successful people. Finding out what their tips and tricks were. And
Modeling what works.
it was a pretty common theme amongst all of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know there's a long history of mentorship. And I think that is a good tie back to really where you got started. Because for you in the early ages, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, it didn't come easy to you, did it?
No,
What was going on back then? When did you first start in electrical, and maybe give us sort of just leading up to that time?
I first started doing electrical in 1995, I believe it was 94, 95. I started doing it. I was living in Washington, living in northern United States, and was just dealing drugs. I was hooked on crystal meth. That's what I thought I was going to be doing. Walking around with a pocket full of cash and just stupid. And woke up in a park one day, realized and thought to myself, where I'm going to be in 10 years. What am I doing with my life? What kind of legacy am I going to leave behind doing this? And called my mom up and talked to her. She lived down here in Texas, and she sent me a one-way bus ticket, non-refundable, so I could go sell it off and buy more drugs. And got on the bus with the clothes in my back and moved to Texas, and left everything I knew, everybody I knew, and started over. And her
Wow.
at the time was an electrician, and I just needed a job. I didn't care what it was at that time, and got hired on with a company down here, sweeping the floors, sorting material, delivering material to jobs. I had a pair of channel locks, a pair of clients, and a screwdriver. That was it.
Wow. Can I go back for 1 second and ask, and I don't think I've ever asked you this before, so this is pretty candid. Why did you get into meth? What brought you into that world? Do you remember or do you know?
Running with the wrong crowds. I dropped out of school when I was 16. I never graduated high school. And I wanted to party. That seemed like the fun thing to do and the right thing to do at that time. My mom and dad were split up. My mom was a single mom raising 4 kids by herself. And she was trying to do everything she could. She had a bit of a drinking problem back then. I wouldn't know if you say a problem, but she liked to drink back then. And I just kind of went willy-nilly, got hooked up with a girl and talked into some things, and things went left real quick.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that. So not the easiest start, and
No,
definitely could have went a different way on you.
yeah,
So as many of our listeners know, like I'm an advocate for this as well. I believe that we all face a crossroads early on. And even if we're on the shit path, there is a way out of that. So I just have one more question in this hard time for you. You mentioned just in brief how in a moment you just recognized and asked yourself, where am I going to be in 10 years?
yeah.
Was there a catalyst to that moment? Or is that something that you recall vividly? Or was it just, you know what, things started lining up, the bus ticket came and what have you?
I woke up in a park, not knowing what I'd been doing for the last week. I was so strung out. I would go, and there was times I went 30 days without sleep and just running and gunning, and it was, I mean, it's crazy to think about it now.
And then you became an entrepreneur and now you've gone 40 days without sleep.
Yeah.
sorry to make light of that, but
It's a true story.
yeah. All right.
But yeah, just waking up in that park that morning, for some reason, it just hit me. And I thought it was an inclination to call my mother and ask my mom for advice. She was like, well, I'll bring you down here, you sober up, get your life on track. But well, so your bus ticket, one way, non-refundable. She was very clear about that.
Wow.
And so if you're going to come, you're going to come. If you're not, then, it's tough love. And that's the way it is with addicts. They have to want to have help. You can't force them to get help. It has to be on their time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's run rampant in my family before. And I don't understand why that is. Somebody much smarter than myself can tell you that. But
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So it wasn't just you.
no.
I'm sorry to hear that. Did any of the others escape that lifestyle? Do you mind me asking?
My younger brother did for a while and became an electrician and was doing well, and he fell back into it. He's kind of doing his own thing now. It's
Do you ever have moments or have you had moments where you fell back in or came close?
with cigarettes, yes. With the meth or anything, no. That was just a huge wake up call. I don't know how to explain that one.
Yeah.
It was just a moment in time that I realized that you can either go down this path and go do this, or you can try to straighten up and make something of yourself and go this way.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So you get this first job. Where did that job come from?
And my mom's boyfriend brought me in. That's where he worked. He was an electrician with the company. And I went and sat down and talked with Phil Dobeck, was the owner of the company. And he didn't need any electricians at the time, but said, he hired me on as a shop boy, basically an errand boy. And that's what I did.
You literally worked your way up from the dirty floor,
Yes.
the basement of that company. Okay.
When I got a chance to go out and help, somebody would call in sick. And I remember John Weber was my first journeyman. They asked me to go out with him. All right, Roy, grab your handful of tools and let's go. Oh, I was so excited that day.
Did you have tools?
I was itching. I had a channel locks, a pair of Kleins, and a screwdriver. That was it.
Okay. Yeah.
No tool pouch or anything. Literally a handful of tools.
Yeah. Here I am thinking, looking around, shit, I don't have tools. I just work hard. A broom, bring a broom. I'll clean up after you. Let's go.
Well, that's an important aspect of the job too.
Of course it is. Of course. Okay. So from there, was that sort of your in? Did you get more work out in the field after that point? Or was this kind of a long drawn out process?
No, I started getting out more and more. They saw that I was willing to learn and wanted to learn. I wanted to get out there and do this. And so as more work came in, instead of hiring somebody, lack of a better term, I got promoted to be an electrician from being a shop hand.
Nice.
And back then there wasn't an apprentice license or anything. You got tested in each city down here to be able to work in the city as a journeyman electrician, but apprentices didn't need licenses or
Right. Right.
anything. So
Okay. How long is this journey then from shop hand to licensed electrician?
it was, well, that was a different story. My test taking skills weren't always great. And so I struggled taking the test, and I didn't get my journeyman's license until 8 years into my career.
Okay.
That would have been 2002-ish, that I got my journeyman's license.
Now,
But I was running jobs prior to that without my license.
right.
Because I was showing up, was working at a hospital with a guy that had a coke problem, and he enjoyed doing his cocaine and would be gone for 3 or 4 days at a time. And the owner of the company showed up one day and everything was being done. My job was still on schedule. It's like, well, where's Chris? And I don't know, I hadn't seen him. So, well, how are you getting material? How's the job getting done? Ordered from the supply house. Just call the supply house, send them my order, they send the material over here. We're just making it happen. We all want to work. We all still want our 40 hours. And so we just did it. That eventually, showed that my drive to them and put me into a van.
And I thought I was thrown in the fire. So I've seen similar situations, but there was always a management tie-in where they made that decision to, okay,
Yeah.
we need you to step up. But you just stepped up.
Yes.
Was there any competition to stepping up to that plate?
No, there wasn't. Nobody else wanted it.
Why the hell did you?
Because I wanted to prove something. I wanted to show what I could do. I wanted, to take that step. If you don't, then how are you going to move up? Are you going to wait until somebody taps you on the shoulder and says, okay, you're up next? Or are you going to step up to the plate and be present and show them that I'm ready to step up next? This is what I want. This is what I want to do. By that time, I knew I wanted to be an electrician. That was my calling. That's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And so it was either grab the bull by the horns and get on, hold on, and make it happen, or sit back and watch everybody else try to do it. I remember there was a time when we'd gotten some guys loaned out to us from another company that was slow, and we were doing a trim out on this medical facility. It was a 2-story building, and all medical offices throughout. And I was lining everybody out that was there, giving, here's your material. This is what I want you to do. And told this one guy, here's plugs, here's switches, here's your plates. Start at this room, start working your way down the hallway, trimming these offices out. And one of the other helpers came up to me and was like, dude, you know who that is? I was like, yeah, his name's Mike. He's putting in plugs and switches. They're like, no, he's an instructor at the ABC. He's a master electrician. You got him putting in plugs and switches. I was like, it needs to be done. He was happy to do it. I didn't know any better. It's my first time running a job,
Yeah.
And
Okay.
he did it happily.
Yeah. Easy work, right? Throw her on autopilot. Let's go. Yeah. That's funny. That's funny. Did he ever end up teaching you?
No, I ended up going through ABC. I ended up going through a school here called IEC.
Okay. Right.
I don't
And you're
know if
still
they have-
connected with IEC. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
And bit of a segue, but where does that connection provide you with? What are the benefits of working with them?
It provides me with classes to send the guys through, send myself through, continuing education classes, test preparation classes. They've got some foreman classes, some superintendent classes. They also do a 4-year school
Wow.
that I have 2 guys going to start next year. And it's a 4-year course that runs one night a week, runs concurrent with the school year. So you still have your spring break, Christmas break, and summer's off. So they go for Tuesday night from 5 to 9 every week. And after you come out of that 4 years, it's set up to where you can start as an apprentice at the very beginning of your career. And after that 4 years that you're in there, then you should be able to test out for your journeyman's license.
Nice.
And there's also an aspect to it to where we can borrow and lend out employees to other companies that are involved with the IEC to help try to keep everybody busy, slow times, and or get people in when you're too busy. Don't need to hire somebody, you just need somebody for certain projects.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love that.
It's a great thing. Do they have it? I don't know if they have it in Canada. I think it's just here in the States.
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, not in my area, but sounds almost like a little mini union.
It is, for lack of a better term, independent electrical contractors, is what the IEC stands for.
Yeah, independent would be the important word there.
And they do, I mean, like I went to a power show last month that was through the IEC, and the guys can compete to get into a competition wire off. And you've got a little board there, you've got to put in your conduit, run your wire, and set up your start stops and make things work in a certain order, and then you can go on to the national part of it. So the IEC does a big national competition for electricians, which I always thought was pretty interesting.
Very cool. Very cool. I want to take you back to this time for a moment where you start running projects, because you did stand up to the plate. And forgive me in advance for the hard question, but our podcast today, as we record this, our podcast today was about the big why,
Right.
and how important it is to know not just what you're trying to do, but why, what's driving you towards this thing. Because if that's not strong enough, you just don't make it through.
Yeah.
What do you think was your why that was really pushing you through that, wanting so much more than everyone else?
The I don't know how to put it, the want of knowledge. It's one of the things that I've always told my guys also, that you'll never know everything in electrical. The code's forever changing. There's no way any one person can know everything. I mean, you can talk to Mike Holt, he'd tell you the same thing. The guy you think would know everything
No.
in electrical. It was the thirst for knowledge. I wanted to know everything I could about it. I wanted to be able to. And at that time, I was married. I was single, and it wasn't for my family. It wasn't for anybody else. It was for myself. So I wanted to be the best that I could be in the field that I'm in.
Yeah. I kind of associate, I mean, for myself, I feel like I associate, because I had a very similar background. People would look at me like, what are you doing? Just calm down.
Yeah.
What are you trying to do here? But it always led to that leadership role. It always led to pushing it a little bit further. And I just think back to the similar feelings, and was it that adversity, that fear of failure again, the
Right.
first taste of people actually appreciating me in their lives? There was something extra there.
Yeah.
And it seems that successful entrepreneurs tend to have faced some shit.
Yeah.
It's not a rule of thumb, but there tend to be a pretty large number of us. Okay, so as you're coming up, you come through this, you've got this why, it's driving you, you're leading more and more jobs. You must eventually leave this person and decide to go on your own, or were there other jobs in between?
There were several others in between. I'd make a jump and for a couple dollars an hour. All of us have had that thought. Most of us have acted on it. Somebody's offering you a few more dollars an hour. Your current employer won't give it to you. All right, well, go work for them. But in doing so, I was able to get a more diverse knowledge of electrical, of things that I've done over my career, and it was great. It was just something I wanted to know different aspects of it. I didn't start doing residential until I was 10, 12 years into my career.
Oh, wow.
I always wondered why they wired houses with temporary wiring. It was always our joke in the commercial field. But I mean, I've done anything from restaurants to dialysis clinics to Starbucks, Blockbusters. Worked a lot of the Dell buildings when they were building them up down here. Gas stations. It was just wanting that to be well versed. So when people ask you, what kind of electrical work do you do? If it has electricity, I work on it.
Right.
It doesn't quite matter what it is. I didn't want to be cornered into just one area doing electrical work.
Right. And you said something again that's pretty neat there. I want to call attention to, having gone to the different jobs, experienced different things. We used to have this saying in the field, and it makes me cringe to hear it now. From that employee standpoint, though, well, whatever, I was looking for a job when I found this one. You ever hear that before?
Yeah.
And it's such a poisonous statement, but the reality is, what you've said about your business and what it is today, it's more than a job, isn't it?
Yes. It's a lifestyle.
Isn't that a nugget right there? I just had to call attention to that. All right. So what pushes you out on your own here, Roy, in this story?
I get tired of being mad at others and the way they're doing things.
You were a bit aggressive for a while in leadership.
Oh, yes. Yeah, you could, I mean, what do I have? I have 4 lead guys right now. I'm promoting one of my guys up to a lead guy, but I've got 4 lead guys right now. They've all been my apprentice at one point in time or another at different companies.
Oh, wow.
And they knew what an asshole I was. And I was an asshole. I got brought up hard. You know, I had some
Yeah.
old timers that would, if it wasn't done their way, they'd throw the tool pouch on the ground and cuss me out and tell me how stupid I was, tear it down and do it my way. And I kind of took some of that with me, you know, as I was coming up. And they all knew that, you know, that not very fun to be around if things aren't done correctly. Um, and then as I've transitioned into being a business owner now, it's gotten, you know, you look at it through a different lens. It becomes a little different. And my wife has told me a couple times that I'm being too nice.
Hmm. Tough to find that balance.
Yes, it is. But I worked for a company before I started mine and helped him build that company up from when I started there was 4 of us. And by the time I left, there was 16. And the money management wasn't happening correctly. The management of the employees wasn't happening correctly. The just everything there was getting to be toxic. And I didn't like it, you know, and that's where I come from saying I was tired of being mad at somebody else. When I'm mad at somebody, I'm mad at myself. So I'm just going to go out and start my own thing, and we're going to do this. And I mean, like I said, I talked, I mean, with my wife, with friends, family, other business owners for 3.5 years before I finally took that leap of faith.
Wow. And it's actually, I find it actually really neat that you consider yourself, because you're hard on yourself, as most of the all stars in the world are. But it's neat that you say, "Hey, I was really hard on people, yet all my old apprentices, not all, but many of my old apprentices work for me."
Yeah,
Several, maybe is the better term. You said 4, is that right?
correct. Yeah,
4. So 4 people you were hard on also connected with you as a person, understood why you were being hard on them, and made a conscious decision to come work for you again. So either they're insane or you did some good things there.
right. A
I
little bit of
don't
both.
necessarily think it's a bad thing to be hard on people.
No,
In fact, Joe and I were talking about this today. It can be a bad thing to constantly be praising people,
right.
because then what?
That's what they become accustomed to.
Yeah, it just gets dull. There's no meaning left in it, right? The peaks and the valleys are necessary. So at least you know you've got 4 guys you can still scream at and they'll stay.
Yep.
Just kidding. No, as
And
you
if it's
said,
all praise all the time, you know, are they learning? They feel like they're learning. You know, we learn through our mistakes. And that's I tell my guys that all the time. You know, I had a guy just last month, 2 months ago, maybe longer now, but back into a car in a parking lot.
great example.
Insurance claim, you know, and he was worried. He called me up, told me about it. First, almost the first words out of his mouth, he's like, "Am I getting fired?" I was like, "No, absolutely not. Why would you get fired of it? It's a mistake. You know, it happened once. It's the first time anything like this has happened for you. You know, let this, as long as you don't make the same mistake over and over again, we'll be fine. It's just not something I'm going to fire you over." And it kind of boggled my mind that that was his first thought in his mind, that he was going to get fired.
Yeah. Yeah. It almost seems illogical at times, right?
Yeah.
But that's an emotional mind and in a response, a reactionary state, and panicked a little. And I commend you for putting them at ease and continuing to embrace a forgiving culture and a family there. I think that's really important myself.
Yep.
Okay. So, on the terms of building this business up, right back full circle, where we were, and you were talking about in the beginning how just starting yourself, you had a $5,000 allowance from the Mrs. Gomez, right? Hey, you can use this. You got your LLC formed and you started going to work. You hired your first guy.
Yeah.
Now, at that point, did you have a vision for this, for Dynamic? Did you know you were going this direction, or were you in a completely different world than you ever thought?
No, it was my vision. It's what I want. I want to build an empire. That was always my thought process when building a company. If you're not going to go all in, why go in at all? It's always been my belief, so it's something I want to build up into something and make a name for it. And I want people to know the name, trust the name.
Wow, I love that. I love that. And so, did you have guidance with this, or is this all intuition right from the early days?
No, I had a lot of guidance from my CPA, and he was one of my best friends before he passed away. But he would help me understand the numbers to be able to do the things that I did. And he would tell me, "Don't be scared. I see where you're trending. I see where things are going. Go ahead, buy that van. Hire another guy." I'm like, "There's no way. There's no way." I was scared shitless. I mean, it was like, buy a van and hire another guy. I'm responsible for another family. It was like, how am I going to do this? This is insane. And every time it would come up in question or anything, he was always, "No, you can do this. You got this." And every time I would do it, bought a van, hired another journeyman. I hired him a helper. And then I bought another van, hired another journeyman, got him another helper. And it kept just rolling along and rolling along. Out there, I was still in the field, working along with an apprentice, trying to build him up to when he got his wirements, I could put him in a van, put him on his own. And it was a lot of damn work. It was a lot of damn work.
Yeah, no kidding. A, wow. B, I've said this many times before. I'm very sorry for your loss. How difficult was that, losing a friend and a mentor to your business?
It was pretty crushing, really. I mean, I kind of lost my vision a little bit there for a little bit. And then I got with y'all, and just talking to you and going over some things and stuff. It really helped regain my vision again and get back on track and find that path. And there, I didn't care how much money I made that year. I didn't have any goals set or anything. I was just like, no, we're running the business. The business is making money. Everybody's working. We're fine. Whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember, and that's really where we first engaged, from the Rebs group, as mentioned earlier. And I do recall some of our first calls, and I still have notes from those calls, and really highlighting, double circling, underlining that vision and where you were headed. And I recall that focus on that. And
Yeah.
it wasn't something that, although we were able to agree this is a big hole here, you also weren't ready to deal with that right away.
Right.
But then, has it been 2 years now, Roy? We've been chatting. I'm losing sight of the years here, but then I would see you posting these fishing pictures, the very ones we're talking about fishing test earlier. But in that case, you would be answering phones,
Oh yeah.
having to check the emails, not quite away from it yet. So, in a way, did it feel like you'd sort of turned your back for a bit, lost passion, and yet there's this anchor just holding you? Or like, how did that feel to you?
No, it was. It was like I lost all my drive for it that I had in the beginning. For the first couple of years. Just it would have been, a couple of years ago, and it was just kind of bluffing. It's like I didn't really care where the company went. If we could stay right here, it's fine. It's just fine. But that wasn't the vision I had when I stepped out into this. And I want to build an empire. I want to have 15 trucks on the road. I want to be the people that if somebody has a problem, the lights go out, they're going to call Dynamic. I want to be known for that. It's getting back on track now.
And as you should,
Mhm.
right? The staff are voting with their commitments and your retention, and the people you've attracted more recently. You've got a great foundation and a great culture, and Dynamic deserves that trust in your community from everything that I've seen, from your social media engagements, your marketing efforts, your staff efforts, the way you treat those staff. I mean, any electrician in your area truly would find a great home working for you. I can vouch for that.
Yeah, and there's actually a big turning moment a couple weeks, 2, 3 weeks ago. I was at that power show, walking around. They've got vendors all set up around where the apprentices are doing their boards, and just walking through, talking to the different vendors, seeing people I hadn't seen in years and stuff. And there was a guy came up to me, I hadn't seen him, and I hadn't seen Dennis in over a decade. We used to be, uh, we used to work for the same company running service,
Mm.
and that was back in the early 2000s. When work was real sparse and slow. And I remember sitting out at the picnic table with the guys there. We were all drawing straws and who's going to take the next call that comes in, just waiting for work to come in. And ran into him there, and got to talking and stuff. And he looked at me and he's like, you're my idol. I look up to you. I see what you're doing. I see how things are going. And that's what I strive to be. That's what I strive to be. And it kind of made me step back out of my body almost for a little bit, look at the situation and be like, wow, that's just, to get peer recognition like that it spoke volumes to me. I was kind of shocked.
I can definitely imagine that, man. That's so empowering to hear. And I feel that when your head's down and you're just grinding, just focused on you. I mean, you don't know that other people are looking.
Right.
That's wild. There's one more magic thing I want to bring up here on this show, and then we're reaching the end here as we're running out of time. I want to respect your time, Roy. In the time we were talking and before we were working together, one of the most critical things I recall hearing from you was that you didn't quite have people that wanted more. You had people that were sticking through with you, and you respected and loved, cared for these guys, but no one really wanted more. Now, when we started working together and you regained your vision and regained focus and really started pushing and bringing guys in for some training and, you said something really powerful on the phone. You said, it's not something that I ever asked for, but suddenly people are coming to me wanting their papers, wanting their growth. Do you know why that is? Do you know what happened there?
I stepped back into a leadership role, I would say. I regained my vision and made it, I was vocal about it. And I think them seeing, that I was out there, this is what I want to do, this is what I expect, this is where I want to go, and I want to go there with you guys. I want you guys to be a part of it. And I think that's what kind of turned the corner. And that was something that you helped me realize, even. It was something that you said to me. It wasn't even something I had realized, to be honest.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I think that realization is worth so much, because in just a short period of time, regained vision, right? Reasserted your pricing towards that vision, so that you're on your way to this financial goal now, which is almost double of last year, right?
Yes. It'll be, yeah, a little over double.
Right?
Just under 1.5 last year. So, yeah.
The people you had started showing up at a higher level following your lead, and you attracted another 50% of your staff.
Yes.
All in the period of like 6 months. I have to applaud you for that, and just let you know that I'm so proud of that growth. Roy, to finish this, do you have any message for any electricians that might be watching in your area who would be interested in working with you one day, who maybe want to have that conversation with you, or for anyone else who may be watching this?
It would be, I would say don't be scared, but no, you're always scared. That feeling hasn't left. I don't think it ever will. But be bold enough to want to take that step. If there's somebody that that's doing what you want to do, pick up the phone and give them a call. I don't mind helping people out, talking to people, talking about how I did it, what I went through to get there. And and that has happened with 3 other guys that I've worked with in the past that have reached out and have asked. And it's not like business owners are reaching out trying to help people, but if you call them and ask them, they'll more than likely sit down and talk to you.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I can attest to that too. Of all the electrepreneurs, man, that we've been working with over the years here, you always showed up. If we got a room full of electricians together, it always seemed Roy was there, happy to contribute, connect, and just shoot the shit with a bunch of other guys on a similar journey.
And
Thank you
that's where
so
all this started with y'all, was putting that together online. And I thought it was a great thing. I'm like, holy shit, here's a bunch of electricians from across the country. They're getting together in one place, just to have conversations. And I mean, it's grown quite a bit, hats off to y'all for taking that step and doing that. And what y'all are doing right now is different from anybody else. I mean, there's several companies here in the Austin metro area that offer training for service companies, but their training is for HVAC and plumbing. Oh yeah, and we do electrical too.
I love how you said that. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're an electrician, we'll service you. It's okay. We're not going to shut the door on you. Okay, we'll shut the door, but it's unlocked. You can come
Right.
in.
Knock, you can get in.
Yeah, I love that.
But
Okay.
it's great seeing what y'all are doing and helping electricians out. And, y'all helped me out. It was very, very eye-opening, appreciative.
I'm honored, man. I thank you so much for those compliments. If people wanted to get a hold of you or see what Dynamic Electrical is about, what is the best way to see you and your brand, your company?
Website, dynamicelectrictx.com.
Dynamicelectrictx.com.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Roy. I really hope we get to do this again, honestly, because there's so many nuggets in your story, and I just cannot wait to see you on your trajectory forward, onward and upward in your empire growth, my friend.
Sir, it's good talking to you.
There's been another episode of Electrepreneur Secrets, the Electrician Podcast. Once again, we're here with you 5 days a week to help you master sales, simplify pricing, and deliver premium level service, but only if you're an electrician. We're going to shut the door on those other guys.
That's right.
Cheers.